Hello guys, welcome to another video from this YouTube channel. Today we're talking about roles, okay? Another beginner's video, and it's something very simple, but it's actually a current question from people that are playing, but they are not playing on teams and they don't understand some things about Counter-Strike. Roles are really easy to understand and really easy to explain, but they actually, knowing the roles can actually make it easier for you to learn Counter-Strike, okay? So the first thing we are going to do is talk about every single role that basically exists, and we are going to talk about a little bit about what a specific player that belongs to that role needs to know and needs to, improve or get specialized, get that what does he need to do to get that specialization, in terms of role. Obviously roles are really important for competitive play. If you put just think about having a team with 5 snipers, it won't work, obviously. So, and all roles are equally important. My favorite player is Fox, obviously, which is a sniper, but the best player in the world, and obviously one of my favorite players, is actually coldzera, in my opinion, and coldzera is a support player. So don't think like, oh, this guy is a support, he's the worst guy in the team. Actually, sometimes, many times, it works the other way around because of the support role itself. I'm going to explain a little bit about every single roles for you guys to understand. So first things first, there are only four roles, all right? So there's an entry killer, right? There's a support player, there's the AWP, the sniper, and there's obviously the lurker, okay? So many people talk about star player. Well, star player, it's the player that has more stats on the team. That's a star player, right? A guy that can play awesomely versus tier 1, that's the star player. For example, on SK, the star players obviously are coldzera and fair, probably, right? And fallen, while coldzera is a support. Fair is an entry killer, and Fallen is the AWP, right? So in terms of mouse sports, which is the demo that I just recently watched, the last pro player demo that I watched, the star players are obviously Oscar, right here. Robs is having a lot of impact too. Chris J used to be a star player on the AWP role when he was when he was playing with Nico. Chris J and Nico were probably, the most well, Nico was for sure the star player of the team. Chris J was the sniper and he was a star player too. But you understand what I'm trying to say, okay? So star player is not a role. That's the first thing. Another thing is the Playmaker, okay? The Playmaker, it's somewhat of a role. Okay, I don't count them. I don't count it in this list because it is a mix of roles, right? The Playmaker is basically an entry killer, right? That likes to do something, that is supposed to do something in some tactic, that is going to try to get to create something alone. All right, and there are a lot of players that have this tendency. With the AWP, I think Oscar and JW are insane playmakers. They do a lot of things on their own, okay, just playing by spawn and going crazy. But this is very common for AWPs to go playmaking mode. You can see a lot of riflers too. For example, Olaf Meister. It's very common for him in some Fnatic tactics. It was coming back in Pronex days, and it's still common nowadays. To see him just going for something solo, it needs to make sense. It needs to be a part of some tactic. Normally, it is something done on the terrorist side. It can actually be done on the counter-terrorist side, but on the counter-terrorist side, when you see aggression, it's normally the AWP with a support working to get an entry, or an entry killer with a support working to get an entry. Okay, on the terrorist side, you can see some tactics where, for example, Olofmeister just plays alone and he tries to get control of Ladder Room. You all saw this happening. He loves to do it on his own without any type of support. Sometimes he receives a flash, but many times he really plays mid alone. On some tactics, it happens. All right. So the other thing that is very important is to understand that the Lurker role, okay, doesn't appear on CT side. Okay, so on CT side there is no Lurker. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about these roles, and for you guys to understand what they are, for you guys to decide what you want to, to learn first, because basically when you are starting to play Counter-Strike, or even if you're playing on an average or good level, roles are not that important, because you will need to play them all, except for example if you don't play sniper, so the AWP, the sniper role doesn't belong to you, but you need to know how to lurk, how to entry kill, and how to support properly. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the sniper. What is the sniper role? Easiest one to understand. You play with the AWP. Okay, you have a lot of things that you need to understand. For example, the economy. Sometimes you need to, because as you can see on the economy video on this channel, the AWPs tend to buy differently when they win or when they lose the pistol round and so on. Okay, so the AWP needs to understand this, and you need to understand your role in different places of the map. Sometimes you go for the entry, you need to be the one cleaning up some places, but sometimes you need to cover your teammates. For example, when you are on long on Dust 2 and you get pit control when you're attacking, you shouldn't push with the AWP. The most common way to play that role on that place, it's basically covering your teammates and avoiding some crazy counter-terrorists that use flashbangs and just push through city smokes and stuff like that. You understand? So basically you need to adapt to your partners. So you obviously are an entry killer with the AWP. Your job is going to get to basically be able to get a pick. You can be more or less aggressive, but basically this is the sniper role. It's the most easy role to understand. All right, so after that you got the entry killer. Okay, the entry killer, and it's very good that this demo is on SK, because they are probably the best, one of the best teams in the world. They are one of the best teams in the world, and they are very easy to understand because some notions are not correct that many people do. For example, Taco is very often an entry killer, very often, and he's considered to be the weakest link in terms of statistics of SK, but he's so freaking important to the team. Taco is like the heart of the team, and what he does, someone needs to do, and the things he does many times won't get him many kills. So, and someone needs to do it, and that's why they are strong. And many times he really sacrifices himself to create openings for his team. And the entry killer many times does this. Obviously, the entry killer is the guy that goes for the entry frag. All right, but when you're attacking, as I talked to you before, you start on a 5v5 situation. You know, this is how the round starts. But the 4v4 situation with time and with bomb control favors the terrorists 99% of the times, unless all of your team is like shotted or something. Okay, if you have time to do whatever you want and you have bomb control, even if you don't have a bomb site, but you know where the bomb is, you got the bomb, you didn't lose the bomb, so the counter-terrorists cannot stack a place to protect the bomb. This is better for the terrorists. So this here is really important, because entry killers are not it's not their obligation to get the entry kill. Many times the entry killers just get just open a situation. You understand? They just a circumstance. And that circumstance needs to end on something that is good for the terrorists, okay? And something good for the terrorists is actually a 4v4, for example. So just imagine the entry killer died and he got traded by a support or something. That's actually good. So the entry killer just opened a good chance for his team. Just got map control, right? Just cracked the defense, because the defense was mounted on a 5-player basis, and because of that trade, the other team, the city-sided team, the counter-terrorists need to adapt, okay? And many maps are really a big pain in the ass to defend with 4 people. I can tell you Dust 2 is not, obviously it's not. In my opinion, it's the easiest one to defend with 4, but Nuke, for example, can be a big pain in the ass. Mirage without mid control with 4 people defending can be a really pain in the ass. And guess what? Nuke and Mirage are often city-sided maps. So getting the 4v4 to your team, that's game breaker. Alright, and many times you don't kill anyone as an entry killer, but your job, obviously, is to go for the frag. So just because you are not obligated to get the kill, it doesn't mean you are not trying. So basically, the entry killer is the guy that goes many times in front of the team. He's the guy that goes for the first contact. Okay, he needs to have. He receives a lot of flashes. So normally he plays with his AK on his hands, and he's not very. He doesn't spend a lot of time throwing nades and stuff. Okay, so it's just. But he needs to know how to do it. And on some plays, he can actually make a lot of utility. For example, if you're rushing mid in Nuke, the entry killer, you're playing spawn-based tactics when you're rushing Nuke on mid, and when you're doing that, the entry killer is the guy ahead, and is responsible, for example, for blowing the door with a grenade and making the first flash for mid. You understand? So it depends on the execute itself. Alright, but basically this is it. The entry killer needs to have a great first bullet. Okay, you don't want to spray. You really want to go for the headshots. Alright, because you have the AK, and to get the entry killer, you need to play a lot for the headshots. You want to go for a great headshot percentage. Okay, this is basically what the entry killers love to do. And basically this is it. The support player, it's the guy that makes things possible in terms of plays. Obviously, he synergizes directly with the AWP, he synergizes directly with his entry killer, and he makes something happen. Okay, so he's actually, in my opinion, is one of the most important roles. All roles are really important, but the support guy, just think about what he has to do. Many times you need to buy like UMPs to get full utility, so the tactic is able to be done because your economy is not very good. Okay, he is responsible, so the buy is something very specific for a support player. He is responsible for the trade. Okay, so if your entry killer misses and he gets killed or he gets surprised, he goes in looking to some place, and the other guy is just in another, and the counter terrorist is on another angle, and he just lands the headshot and he just destroys your entry killer. Your entry killer, you are responsible for the trade. Okay, and the trade, it's the 4v4 right here, and if you miss it, you're done. Okay, because you don't want a 4v5 situation. You lost your entry killer, your trade needs to be there. But in terms of utility, is really important. Why? Because if your entry killer that goes in front of you jumps into an AWP, for example, he jumps into 2 guys or 3 guys stacking with 5.7s, you need to offer the correct utility for the AWP to be blind, for 1 or 2 guys of the 5.7s to be blind. You understand? One of the positions that the counter-terrorists love to use, be smoked. One of the positions that can surprise you, be molotoved. Okay, so the support player needs to have a lot of knowledge, okay, in terms of 2 things: utility and especially being able to trade. And don't forget about one thing. Okay, let me just type here utility. Okay, correct, knowledge about the plays. All right, you need to be good doing your plays, or your plays need to involve, you need to work them. Okay, obviously the entry killer needs to work with you, but in terms of utility, you can't miss, and you need it on your buy. Okay, so you need to spend your economy many times prioritizing the utility itself. All right, so another thing that is very important is the concept of trade. Trade is basically losing one of your teammates and making the trade, killing one of your opponents. The thing is, if you are very good at trading, many times you will steal the kill from your teammate, from your entry killer, and you will be able to save his life. So instead of trading him, you will be able to save him and to get the entry kill for yourself. This can be the job of a support too in some executes. Many times the support is just far away, just pop flashing and smoking, and then two entry killers go in. But many times you are just very close to your entry killer. He drops a flash, you drop a flash after you drop a smoke, and you just follow him. And on those situations that you are very close to your entry killer, saving his life is really, really important. Okay, obviously the hardest guys to trade are many times the AWPs, because they know they normally tend to play on a place that they shoot and then they hide. They play on places that give them security, protection, and are really hard to trade. But your flashes are very important versus AWPs, because they have this to their advantage, but in the other hand they are really, really weak versus flashbangs, because they play scoped in and they don't see flashes. Okay, so basically this is the support. Well, let's talk about the Lurker a little bit. Well, the Lurker, man, just for example, let's just imagine, well, we have a Mirage open here, so let's just imagine a Lurker in B. Okay, let's imagine the Lurker in B got fallen right here, man. Props to him, the best. So the thing is, when you are lurking in B, first things first, you need to understand what you are going to do from the start of the round. Okay, because you can go for many things. You can go for like sneaky beaky, okay, which is lurking here but not making any noise. You can get presence, you can show presence, which is basically using smokes, flash and utility to make some pressure on that side of the map. You understand? To lure some utility, to make them not rotate. So the guy right here defending is going, well, there's guys on B apartments. We need to care on B house. It's there's pressure here. I cannot count them because I'm smoked, and they use the flashbang here. So this will call the attention for example, the short guy, because really you're having problems on B. Okay, I'm helping. This can alleviate the pressure, the counter-terrorist pressure on the other sides of maps that normally are being worked by your teammates, because you are alone. So you may lurking with presence has this ability. Obviously, lurking with presence, you don't want to kill anyone, because you don't want risk. You don't want to risk dying. It's not your thing. You don't want to kill. You don't want to die. So you need to pay a lot of attention to pushes, to enemy pushes. You really need to play with those. You never get. You should never get surprised by them pushing. You need to be prepared for those, okay? Because that destroys you as a lurker, because when they push, they use good flashes, and they normally push with numbers, and you don't want that, all right? So you need to care about anti-push, and many times when you're playing versus forces and stuff, you should actually just go for an anti-push position, okay? Not just sneaky, but on a position that you can actually disengage easier, all right, from pushes. All right, anti-push, especially versus eco and forces. Okay? So, the other thing you can do is actually go for an entry kill. As a lurker, you can entry kill. But normally, that's something you do not do at the start of the round. So, the most important thing about being a lurker, okay, it's the mid-game call. Your role is basically to wait for your teammates to open situations on the map. Okay, and while your teammates are doing this, things can work and things can fail. So you can get more numbers, so superiority in numbers. You can be on even numbers, or you can be in inferiority. All right. So you can be on a 5v4 situation, or on a 4v5, or on a 3v4, or in a 4v4. You understand? This is basically the base for you to decide what you're going to do on your mid game call. Obviously, lurkers exist to avoid pushes, to avoid counter terrorists, to avoid them to get a lot of information, to avoid them flanking your entire team while you are preparing to attack the other bomb site and stuff like that. So this is your main role. They are actually very important because of the rotations. For example, you're playing in B, you're lurking in B, just sneaky beaky, and your teammates are working mid. The intention of the team is to go A, but for some reason they want to rotate B. They can rotate B safely with their knives out because you're still there. So the road from their place to yours, it's basically covered. You understand? So the rotations are quicker. All right. That's very important too for you guys to understand. Well, a good way for me to explain to you guys, it's on Dust 2 when you're lurking on lower tunnels or upper tunnels, but you don't show yourself, and your teammates are trying to get entries on stairs or mid, and they wanted to go stairs, but something happens and they say, okay, your in-game leader just goes, okay, let's rotate and go B. That rotation needs to be fast, and your position, the positioning of the lurker, it's what make it safe. Okay, so it can be fast because the lurker is there. The road to the lurker, it's clean, it's safe. Okay, that's very important too, to basically make it possible for your team to rotate quick. Okay, so talking about the mid game call, this is obvious. If you have advantage, normally you flank the counter terrorists. You let them retake and then you stab them in the back. Okay, the other thing you can do is basically go to your team. Okay, so you are in a 4v3 situation, you don't want to flank because you don't see any flank possibilities, so just go to your team and play with the numbers. You are not lurking anymore, you go to your team and you play with the numbers with the advantage that your team has. Okay, because this is a 4v3, but if you're playing alone, it's a 3v3, right? So just go to your team or go and make a crazy flank, a safe flank, and kill enemies on their back, just surprise them. If you have even numbers, right, it's basically the same thing, because this is considered superiority if you have time and bomb control like I showed you before. Okay, so basically this is it, as you go for your mid game call when you have superiority, right? But when you're in a disadvantage, things get a little bit trickier. Why? Because you're on a disadvantage, you are lurking in B, and you're in a disadvantage because teammates are dying here, and you are on a 3v4 situation. For this to happen here, it's very normal that the counter-terrorists are forcing the defense on that side. So it's normal for the short guy, the guy that is defending short, to be going aggro. So this is the reason why your teammates are dying here. And if they are forcing one side of the defense, the other one gets a little bit weaker. So just by this happening, your teammates are dying in mid, you understand that you are in a 3v4 situation, and if you go aggro on B and provoke a 1v1 in B, and it will be a 1v1 because you know that they are putting all the effort on the mid side of the map. If you win this 1v1, you get two things for your own. First, you win the 1v1, you transform this 3v4 on a 3v3 situation. And if you just explode it to B bomb site, you give the headshot and you explode, you get control of the B bomb site, which is actually really, really good for your team too. Obviously, you will have to control it in a smart way, right? Because you will need to wait for the rotation of your teammates to go B. but you get control of a bomb site, and the disadvantage is not there anymore. So many times lurkers, when they are losing the rounds, when they are on a disadvantage, they tend to provoke 1v1s. They tend to go aggro. They become entry killers playing solo. They become playmakers by definition. Okay? And this is why it makes sense. Just don't forget that if you're playing versus good counter-terrorists, they will understand this. Okay? They will be prepared for this. The guy on B will understand that if his team is winning 4v3 and there's a lurker here, and it's normal that there's a lurker here and this guy is you, your opponent will understand that you are coming. He will read your intentions. Okay? So in terms of counter-terrorist side, the sniper is really easy, right? He's an entry killer, basically that's it, and he plays, he needs to be, he shouldn't play all the time on the same place. Sometimes they play right here like Guardian loves to, sometimes they go like here, which is very common, like Mr. Kenny S. Fox loves to get boosted here a lot of times to get the entry in mid. I don't know, we see a lot of AWPs. I'm thinking about Cold Zero, which is a second AWP player, but even main AWP players going for aggro on B, so you need to be unpredictable. Your job is to provoke the 5v4 with an AWP shot. You need to think obviously about your spawn, but being unpredictable is the key. Never go for the same place twice, basically, unless it's working so hard that they can't counter it. But trust me, versus good guys, if you play all the time at the same place, trust me, they will counter you really, really easily. Okay, so play on the surprise factor. In terms of entry killing and support, it exists. Obviously, it exists normally. I will give this example on the North team, one of my favorite teams, Mr. Config, which is cocky as fuck, but I love him, man. I really think he's one of the best players in the world, one of the best entry killers in the world. This guy is amazing, and on counter-terrorist side, he plays full aggro. For example, on Mirage, he is the guy that when he has a good spawn, he normally pushes mid alone with the support of a guy from here, normally Cajun B covering him, and some guy flashing for him to do this type of picks. Okay, so obviously when you go for aggro plays, aggressive plays on counter-terrorists, your support and entry killer needs to count. But don't forget that this type of plays normally depend on spawn, so it's very common for you to see this type of plays on some clans, on some teams that are not done by the entry killer itself. So config and on the terrorist side is always an entry killer, but for example, some other guy can do the play because he spawned better and they want to rush mid, so that guy is going to have the entry for himself. You understand? You need to take that into consideration. There are other things that are very important. For example, Magic Boy many times lurks. For example, attacking overpass, he lurks on connector, but when he's defending, he's many times an entry killer. He's a guy that loves to go for aggressive plays. The support is the guy that goes with him or flashes for him to do a crazy pick. Okay, so basically these are the roles, guys. Just don't mess things up. Okay, you cannot be a good entry killer without being a good support player. You cannot be a good support player without being a good entry killer. Obviously, your play style will make the difference between the role where you feel you are more comfortable. For example, Mr. Cold Zero is the best in the world, and he is not very strong on first contact. After he has the info where his opponent is, Jesus Christ, you don't want to be in front of Cold Zero, but he needs the info so he can shine and be the best player in the world. That's why he needs entry killers like Fair or Taco or even Phelps now to go and do that for him. Okay, don't forget about that. Obviously, you will get, when you get teams, when you play in teams, when you will be able to play in teams. Many of you guys already play there. You need to think, guys, that you should adapt to your team's necessities, but your team needs to give you the things that you love doing. So if you're a sniper, obviously you won't be a support player. You understand what I'm trying to say? So if you're doing this, with your team, just don't forget, if you're evolving, practice all roles, okay? You cannot defend, and I'm not talking about defending being an entry or something, you cannot defend without knowing how to lurk. I just show you that this guy needs to be able to read this lurker, right? This is very important. For you to read this guy, when you are playing CT, you need to understand how to lurk. So you cannot be an entry killer, and I don't care about lurking because I'm not a lurker. You need to understand them all, and they are very easy to understand. They obviously need practice. For me, the most thing, if you're playing matchmaking, you should always go for one of these two, entry or support, unless you're a sniper, obviously. If you're a sniper, you're a sniper, period. But you should go for this, okay? Make friends, make plays, call your friends to just say to one guy that is playing with you to just follow you. You put all the utility in and you just run forward, and basically that's what you do on matchmaking, on pugs, okay? And this is how you evolve the most. Obviously, when some situation requires you to lurk, you need to understand how to lurk, and the mid-game call of the lurker is explained on this video, so just read the just listen to the explanation again, okay? Just study that. It's pretty easy. It has everything to do with the superiority and inferiority in terms of numbers, okay, guys? So this is pretty basic. I hope you guys understood it, and I'm Zorlak, and I'm out. I hope it helped. Okay, guys? See you next video. Bye-bye.